then mental language is everything else. Mental language is all of your interpretations, it's all of your questions about information or the future, it's your planning, it's your agreements, it's all that stuff. And there's nothing wrong with mental language, but again, you don't want to go there prematurely. If I'm pissed off at you and I say, "Why did you do that?" then I'm using mental language to try to handle that I'm angry. And it's not skillful. Does that make sense? Or, "I want you to tell me that you will never do this again." That is not skillful. We're trying to extract a commitment and make future plans while emotions are happening. So that's not working your way from the bottom up. You want to try to have emotions fairly resolved before you go up into mental language. Does that make sense? Now, you may have a brief excursion into mental language while you're processing your feelings. You may want to include a judgment or an interpretation that you have. The way that I suggest in its, cleanest form doing mental language is putting something in front of it, like, "I imagine that such and so," or "I'm having the story that such and so," or "it's my judgment that blah, blah, blah." And when you're doing mental language, that it's emotionally neutral. See, if I say, "I'm mad at you for the look on your face, and I'm imagining that you look like a real asshole," then I defeated the whole purpose, right? I put the passion in the imagining and neutrality in the emotional thing, right? And people do this all the time. People will say, "I'm mad at you for something because you're such a..." And everything juicy will come after the "because." And because, whenever you hear "because," that's a warning sign. Strike "because" from your vocabulary in that instance. You don't want "because" anywhere near your emotional language. So, mental language can have this kind of stem on the front of it of like, "I imagine, my story is, I'm thinking that, blah, blah, blah." It announces a thought as a thought. And then it's delivered in a neutral kind of tone. So like I said, when you're working through something, you may be in emotion land, and then you may have to say, "I'm imagining that what you did means blah, blah, blah." Then come back to, emotion until you can get to a place of actual neutrality. And once you do that, it's great to have a mental conversation and say, it's my understanding that in these kind of situations we should do like this, or is this what kind of agreements do we want to have around situations like this? And asking for what you want, making agreements, offering things, that's mental language. Does that all make sense?
Mostly. You said about going between, I got a little bit lost in going.
I'm saying work your way from the bottom up, but when you're in the middle of emotion land, "I'm mad at you for the look on your face. I'm mad at you for what you just said. I'm imagining that you are judging me." Like I just inserted a little mental language just to kind of get on the same page with you. But then return to, heat in my belly, tightness in my face, blah, 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 until you actually create a shift in your body.
Emotional language stays in yourself. It doesn't put a story on the person.
Yes. It talks about what you're experiencing in your own body and what you've observed or with your eyes or your ears. It's about noticing and naming, not about... but it's even not about noticing and naming your own stories. It's about noticing and naming sensations and sights and sounds. Make sense? Any other other questions about any of that? Now, it may sound a little technical or whatever, but if you get that distinction, it can be useful ongoingly, and I'll say to you, you're going into your head now when you're still pissed off. Or, that wasn't physical language that you used in your, like if it's, I'm mad at you for being so insensitive, that's using mental language in the midst of my emotional expression. Make sense? Interpretation land.
All you have to do is look at reality TV to see this match. It's the basis of all reality.
It's the basis of every. I mean, you look at parents and kids, and it's so sad to me, the communication between the vast majority of parents and kids, because they are arguing over content when what the parent should be doing is empathizing with the feeling. The parent says, clean up your room. The kid says, it's not fair, you never made me do that. And then the parent responds with mental language like, well, you have to do it, you got to be a grown-up, or, that's blah, 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 blah. And then they're arguing, they're having a mental interpretation argument, which is totally pointless, totally counterproductive. It's the parent taking personally that the kid is upset and not even really noticing that the kid is upset and then they're getting upset and so they're living in mental land while the emotions are raging. The only thing that would be skillful for that parent to say is, so, you're mad about me asking you to clean up your room. Yeah, I hear you're mad. And I want you to do it anyway. Maybe, like I would ask sometimes my parents, why am I supposed to do that? And I would get an actual mental explanation that would help me. My mom would say, because I said so, and I wanted to kill her. My dad would say, well, it's important because like this and like this and like this, and la 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 la. I'd be like, oh, okay, I can do that. And I felt like on board then, So that can work if the kid is a genuine question, if they really do want to know, if it's not just an expression of indignation and outrage, which most of the time when people are upset and they ask questions, it's mostly just indirect expression of anger. How could you do this to me? That's not, well, actually, the way that I did it was, that's not what they're looking for, right? It's just a judgment in disguise of mental language. Okay, I think we're good.